Jonathan, really good to see you. Thanks for coming here this morning. Obviously, you've been editor of FTMoney now since August, and previously you were editor of Investors Chronicle for a number of years. What are the differences between the two? What are the main differences?
Okay, well, commercially, the main difference is that the Investors Chronicle is sold overwhelmingly on subscription. About 80% now of its sales are to subscribers, whereas FTMoney is first of all, it's part of an overall weekend package, and secondly, it's largely sold on the newsstand rather than on subscription. So that's the big commercial difference, and that means, from our point of view, that it's commercially more dependent on advertising revenue than the Investors Chronicle was and is. Editorially, the difference is that the Investors Chronicle is a real detail product. It's for the people who want the absolute far end of detail on individual investments. And in particular, they look for recommendations. They want to know whether to buy or sell, and that's what the Investors Chronicle does very well. FTMoney doesn't do that. It's not an FT thing to be tipping shares and saying buy this or sell that. So we steer well clear of that. We have a page in the product that incorporates some highlights from the Investors Chronicle, so that gives people some level of advice and steer. But we're not actually providing it ourselves. We have to be resolutely neutral editorially. I'd say also that FTMoney covers some personal finance issues that the Investors Chronicle doesn't really go near, particularly things like loans and mortgages, which the Investors Chronicle has never really covered. So it is a bit more biased towards personal finance issues than the IC is. I'd say those are the main differences.
And in terms of readers, what differences have you noticed with the readers and the audience you're trying to reach, and what does that mean for the people coming here today, the PR industry?
Okay, the audience, there is some crossover in the audience, not large, but there are some people who read both products. Both sets of products tend to be read by people who are better off than average. So the average portfolio size for both products is sort of over 400,000. The other one is that the IC readers are much more likely to be self-directed investors who pick their own stocks and shares, and they are most unlikely to have a financial advisor. FTMoney's readers are more likely, they do still own stocks and shares individually, but they are more likely to own funds and investment trusts, and they are more likely to have a financial advisor than the IC's readers.
Tips and tricks for PR people dealing with you and your team. What would be your top pleas for help or tips and tricks that people should think about?
I'd say that generally speaking, we're not that interested in individual products unless it's something that's truly revolutionary. And in particular, there are some subject areas that we don't actually write about that much anymore. In particular, things like credit cards, mobile phone tariffs, household and motor insurance, things like that. We don't really go near those subject areas anymore. We are interested in sort of long-term investment themes, and anything to do with costs. Keeping costs down is a key component of investing. One thing we are particularly keen on at the moment is taxation. Actually, for our age group and income bracket, taxation is a key issue, and estate planning issues. We now have a dedicated person following tax issues, so that's something we're always keen to hear more about. We're very interested in how the implementation of RDR is playing out, and particularly whether there are people who are being disenfranchised by effectively the rising cost of advice. So we're interested to hear about that. We're interested to hear about new services that offer people guidance, so a kind of third way between full-on financial advice and just DIY investing. And so those are some of the issues we'd like to hear more about. Plus, of course, we always like to hear about what wealth managers and advisors are recommending in terms of asset allocation. Is it time to be in shares or in bonds or in some other asset class?
Finally, who are you not meeting or not hearing from that you would like to hear from, that people here today can perhaps help with? Which are there areas, regulation, you're not hearing enough, people aren't talking enough about what's going on in regulation or in tax, or are there areas where you need more information and more help from people who are going to be coming here today?
I think there are very few areas actually where we're starved of information. I think I probably would like to hear more individual stories. I'm very interested in how individuals interact with financial products, and because FTMoney doesn't have a subscription base in the same way as the Investors Chronicle does, it's hard for us to reach people, or harder for us to reach people in that way. So I mean, case studies is something we're very interested in having more of, although perhaps not to the degree that some of the other weekend papers have them.
And how do people get those? I mean, get those case studies to you, or how do they know that you're looking for a case study on a particular?
Well, we will usually we look for case studies in one of several ways. We do use social media quite a lot. The main sort of FTMoney Twitter account now has 20,000 plus followers, and several of our individual journalists have several thousand each as well. So we do use social media a fair bit. But after that, our first port of call for case studies is usually either PRs or it's people like Jason Hollands, Adrian Lowcock, the big media-friendly advisors.